Okay, so not everybody has a normal computer that you can set up a Raspberry Pi 4 with. I've done a couple of videos, one on an Android device and one on a Chromebook, which allow you to set up a Raspberry Pi 4 for the first time without using a conventional computer. Now, once you get to this point, once you've got Raspberry Pi OS on it, which is my aim, then you can switch all over to the Raspberry Pi 4 and you don't need to go back to these devices. You don't need anything extra with a Chromebook or an Android device, but with an iPhone or an iPad, you do need a few things. The first one is you need iOS 13 on your phone, and you can go back as far as an iPhone 6S, but not any further because that's when iOS 13 came in. So 6S is supported, SE is supported. I've got an iPhone XS. iPads, same sort of thing. iPad Mini 4 is the oldest, and also an iPad Air 2 I think is about the same sort of generation. So if you've got one of those devices, you can carry on. The next thing you're going to need is a Lightning to USB camera adapter. Now, don't worry that this one says $29 or £29 probably in the UK. This is the one I've used for ages. The device that you're plugging in needs to be incredibly low power for it to work. Now, I found a Kingston adapter which does work, and that works with a little micro SD card, but I wanted to find an easier solution for a video. So if I go to this one, interesting to see in the description that Lightning spelt wrong. So it's got two USB sockets on it, so you can plug in USB devices. You can see on here, like, you can plug in a keyboard, a camera, you can charge it, and so on. It's the charging bit that's important. So what it means is that you can plug your Lightning cable into this slot, and that means that it still powers the phone while you're using it to transfer data. So then we can plug in a normal SD card USB adapter into one of these sockets and plug the SD card into that. It also means that in the future, if you want to back things up from your phone or just transfer files, you can do that. I'm going to do another video on that because I've already kind of covered it, but this is all about the first time setup. So if you get one of these cables, and it's only $10.99 now, I paid $13.99 yesterday or the day before, so it's gone down already. It seems to happen if I buy something off Amazon, they almost always lower the price just after. So the other thing you're going to need is a micro SD card. Now, I'd been recommended these because it's a very cheap A1 card. Kingston is a really good brand. If this is going to be your main operating system, I'd be tempted to go a little bit higher on the size, so like a 64 gig or something like that, because you may be using this to write other operating systems to your Pi. So once you've got Raspberry Pi OS on there, you can do what you want. You can install Ubuntu, you can install RetroPie, Kodi, Android, Windows 10, all sorts of things. So you can really, once you've got that, you're up and running. So anyway, I've got this one. This is the one I'm going to use for the video. Okay, so first thing you need to do is do a search on your web browser for Noobs and Pi, and that will take you to the official raspberrypi.org website. Click on Download Noobs for Raspberry Pi. Scroll down, and there's two versions here. One's a lot smaller. Noobs Lite is the one I'm going to use today. So download zip, and then hit download. That will download into your downloads folder. You can see top right, it shows the download happening. So now we need to go back to our main screen, and you can see there's a blue folder at the bottom on my screen. Yours might be somewhere different. So tap on that, and you need to go to Downloads. You can see the Noobs Lite zip. So we'll let that finish downloading. There you go. You can see Noobs Lite zip. So if I click on that, that will actually unzip that. That's it. 26 items in a folder. So what we need is all of these items to be copied over to our SD card, which we haven't plugged in yet. So I'm going to tap on that folder, and you can see I can have all these open. I can hit select, and interestingly, you can overclock on an iPhone, and I think I've done a video on this before, but you can overclock the config.txt, but I won't do that now because I don't want to complicate anything. So hit that top right button, and then hit select, and then select all. Then we need to go down. You see there's a square with an arrow pointing above it. That's your share icon. Tap on that. and hit copy. Now we need to plug our SD card into a USB SD card adapter, and I'll put a link in the description, as I will with all the bits that I'm using in my video. So I'm plugging that into my adapter now. So hit done, go back and hit browse. So you can see no name is on there. Under my cloud we've got no name, so I'm going to tap on that, and we can press and hold in the middle of the screen and then press paste. You see that's copying all those files over to my micro SD card. You need to wait for that to finish before you eject it. You can see if we scroll down, some of these are still doing. Don't know why it takes so long. I think the adapter probably is quite slow because it's a cheaper adapter. The official adapter is really quite fast. Oh, there you go. So everything's copied over now. I can then take my micro SD card out of the adapter. Now we need to pop that SD card into the Raspberry Pi and switch on. Okay, so I've switched on. You'll see this coloured screen. And you can see saving boot files to memory, creating partitions. This is setting everything up on the micro SD card now. So it's now telling us we need network access, so you can either plug in an Ethernet cable to give it the internet, or you can use Wi-Fi, so hit close. Search for your local network, so this is mine, and pop your password in and hit OK. So now we can pick what operating systems we want to be on our micro SD card. Now the main purpose of this video was just to get you up and running, get you started with Raspberry Pi OS, because once you've got Raspberry Pi OS and a couple of programs, you can do what you want then, and it's a much better system to be in for getting more images, more operating systems onto the Pi. But if we scroll down, we can have a look and show you what there is. We've got Lacquer, which is multiple emulators, so old school games. We've got Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit with a desktop, and we've got one with no desktop. I wouldn't advise the one with no desktop unless you know what you're doing, because it just gives you a command line interface, which is not for beginners at all. And then LibreElec, which is Kodi, which is like a media center, so you can play videos and various things on that. So I'm just going to do the Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit. You might want to put the full version on, because that's got like Office applications and things like that on there. But for my video, I'm going to do this one. So I want the desktop, I want Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit, and then hit install. It tells you how much space you need, by the way. So this is a 32 gig card. So there's 29 gigabytes available at the moment, so we've got plenty of room on there, which is important, because if we want to install new operating systems, we want to download them onto the Pi and then write them onto another SD card. So let's hit install and hit yes. And that's it. This process will take a while because it's got to download nearly 3 gigabytes of software, but just let it do its thing. Okay, so that's finished. So click OK, and the system will reboot, and then just follow the on-screen instructions. So hit next. The Wi-Fi is already connected because we did that with the noobs part. Pick your language and everything else that you want to personalize it with. Pop a password in here if you want your system to be more secure. Tick in this box if you have a black border around the desktop. If you don't, then don't tick it. But it will get rid of the border on the next boot. So hit next. It does this bit even though we already are connected to a network. Update software, hit next. Okay, so system is up to date. Hit OK. Hit restart. And if you don't press any buttons, it will do all of this, and it'll end up booting into Raspberry Pi OS, which is what we want. There you go, you can see the black border's gone now. There's two essentials that I would say for Raspberry Pi. I have got another video about customizing Raspberry Pi OS, which I would say is worth having a look at. I've also got over 250 videos on my channel, so check those out if you want to find out what else you can do with your Pi. There's loads on there. So go to preferences, add remove software, and type in Imager, hit return, and then drag this bar all the way to the bottom, and you can see Raspberry Pi imaging utility at the top there. Just click on that, hit apply, pop your password in, which if you haven't changed anything is Raspberry. So user is Pi and password is Raspberry. Okay, so that's installed, so we can close that down now. And if we go here and go to accessories, you can see Imager is there. That's what we've just installed. And this is a program for installing other operating systems to our SD card. So if you have another SD card, you can install another version of Raspberry Pi OS to mess about with, Ubuntu, which gives you loads of options, Lubuntu and Kubuntu and all sorts of different operating systems. RetroPie, which is a great way of running old emulators like PlayStation and N64 and Dreamcast and things like that. We can erase our card, we can do all sorts of things on here. We can even install custom images from this, so different images. I mentioned Android earlier on, Windows, there's a way of installing that with just Raspberry Pi Imager. And you can see that on my channel. So let's close that down and do the last bit that I would say is essential. So sudo apt install Gparted. And this is terminal, and this is a way of installing software. So this is finding it from the web, press yes and enter, and that installs. There you go, you can see a progress bar there. Once that's finished, we can close that down, go to Start, go to System Tools, and you'll see Gparted is there as well. Now Gparted we don't need at the moment, but what this is a way of expanding the partition. Sometimes you'll install an operating system and it won't be using the full amount of space on your SD card or your USB stick or your SSD drive. So what you do is you expand that partition. I've got a separate video on that, so I won't go into that, but it's just something that at some point you may find you need it, so it's nice to have it on there. It's a tiny piece of software. But yeah, so now you're up and running, you have Raspberry Pi OS, you can install a massive load of different operating systems on there to play around with your Pi. You're ready to go. Okay, so thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.